Wherever censorship is minimal, S-work inevitably follows. People are always gonna want more, always gonna wanna see how much more you can take. It's really turned my head away from this entire industry is the constant exploitation of minors. See people talking about their lifestyle, their freedom, what OnlyFans has allowed them to do. So now you have a bunch of girls who would have never done who are now making. The adult content world is breeding grounds for predators and for mental illness. This is not normal and we need to stop normalizing it. And we are the ones that give them all of the attention and then we want to get pissed off when they're getting attention. Is this truly what you want, or is this what you were taught to want? Hey guys, it's Taylor and welcome back to my channel. So this is the first episode of the Chapters of Her series that I'm doing. I'm doing this series because I really want to show people that you can go through different chapters of your life and you're never tied to one story. You always have the choice to rewrite that story. That is why we are starting this video with the truth about OnlyFans. If you're wondering why I'm wearing these janky glasses, it's because I literally cannot see anything and I've been having the worst allergy attack ever because I just got a new baby cat. She is hiding because she is from the streets, just like her mother. No, I'm kidding. This video is not going to include all of the personal details of my story because number one, I'm coming out with a book on that. And number two, I wanted to split that into two separate videos. So number one, it's not as long and you guys aren't sitting here for days on end, but also because I want you to know my perspective and my opinion and my analysis of the entire situation and how the adult content industry affects men, women, society, and kind of my stance on everything, having been in that industry and also just being exposed to it 24/7. My goal is for young girls to see this and rethink if they want to join that industry. That will always be my position. I will never sit here and say and push somebody into the industry. I think there's way more darkness than there is light, and unfortunately a lot of people on social media try to push the light side of it. Money blurs the lines between your morals and your truth. And the main purpose of my book and of this series and of this video is to allow people to actually think within of what is right for their life. And this can go for any industry. It doesn't just have to be the adult industry. But if you're sitting in a job that you hate, or you're in a relationship where you don't feel satisfied, and gaining the courage to value yourself enough to not stay in places that you are not meant to be, and to go after your dreams, and to allow the world to not tear you down but instead inspire you. And that's the angle that I want to go at. I don't want this to be like shame you, shame you, shame you. I don't want it to be a political thing. I want the main message of this to follow your truth, no matter what that is. I want you to remember when you're watching this video that two truths can stand at the same time. Life is a paradox, it always has been. And because I say one thing about the men doesn't mean that I suddenly am disregarding the women, or just because I say one thing about the women doesn't mean I'm disregarding the men. So understand that I'm angling this from men, women, or creators, and society. Let's just continue. Back in December, I posted a short video about the truth about OnlyFans, which was kind of a little bit of an intro into my position on this entire topic. And I wasn't able to film this video because I actually got mouth surgery. And if you see in my veneer journey, you'll see everything that happened. It was absolutely a disaster. And so that's kind of why this has been a little bit delayed. That being said, I got a lot of pushback about what OnlyFans was actually created for and what was the purpose of the platform. And a lot of people were saying how Tim has created other adult content platforms, which is true. He did custom, what was it? Custom For You and Glam Worship. OnlyFans was launched in 2016. It was launched as an exclusive content platform for all types of creators. I'm actually friends with one of the top dogs at OnlyFans, and I'm not gonna say who because I don't want people reaching out and looking him up and whatever, but he's very important, okay? These are the messages that he sent me when I asked this question because I didn't want to be spreading false information, but I asked him if OnlyFans was supposed to be an adult content platform. And these were the responses. OnlyFans allows direct fan payments and a lot looser content restrictions compared to other social media platforms. So Tim does have the experience creating platforms that allow creators to monetize their content without having to rely on agencies or studios. So I can understand why people would automatically assume that OnlyFans was always meant to be an adult content platform. And for those of you that don't know, back in 2022, when I signed, the terms and conditions actually said that no third parties were allowed, and that has changed recently. I don't exactly know when. I do want to mention that it did start with no third parties were allowed, no management was allowed, no agencies, no talent agents, none of that. So 2020 rolls around, the pandemic hits, everyone's kind of sitting in their home, they're lonely, they want to talk to people, they can't go outside and meet people, and that is really when the adult content on OnlyFans exploded. Fast forward to 2021, OnlyFans actually put out a statement saying they're going to ban adult content on the platform in order to regain their reputation. And because this caused significant backlash, that ended up never actually going through. Now, in 2025, OnlyFans has over 1 billion monthly site visits, 305 million users, 4.5 million of those are creators, 70 to 80% of the platform's content is adult content, 84% of creators are women. I tell you all of this because this goes to my argument, okay? My analysis reveals a pattern. Wherever censorship is minimal, S-work inevitably follows. That's probably why your Twitter now has a lot of OnlyFans girls on your feed, potentially. This is not a coincidence, and this is not Tim's doing, but this is a reflection of society. So in a world where attention is currency and profit often outweighs ethics, you have industries that capitalize on human desire, particularly sex. I'm sure you've all heard of the saying, sex sells, even before you were probably too young to even really understand what that meant. But the truth is, OnlyFans did not set out to be an adult content platform. Do I speculate that Tim might have had the idea that they would be able to go there, considering his past and his ability to allow these S-workers to monetize their content without having to go through other people? Yes. Their lack of early restrictions is really what was the cause of adult content exploding on the platform. And I have seen the corporation really try to find different ways to almost not fix the problem, but allow OnlyFans to not just be an adult content platform. That's why OnlyFans TV is almost like a YouTube now, and it's only safe for work. You can't have adult on there. So I've seen their struggle to try and almost rebrand themselves. My personal opinion, it's too late, but maybe they'll be able to do it one day. That being said, I tell you all of this because I want you guys to understand that this is a symptom of society. Adult content exploding on OnlyFans is a symptom of a culture that prioritizes and glorifies promiscuity and hypersexuality. Now, a lot of people make the argument that prostitution is the oldest profession, and Nunu has always been valuable. Almost not a shock that this has now become a digital thing. Now, some people argue that men are going to sexualize women anyways, and now this is women reclaiming their rights and their body, and this is empowerment, and you might as well monetize off of men being men. Argue that this is what gives them the financial freedom to go pursue their dreams and go do what they actually want to do and not have to fall into the corporate life. And trust me, I understand all of these. I can sympathize with all of them. I might not agree with every argument that's made, but I definitely understand where it comes from, and I understand why people rationalize their decision to go on the platform with one of those arguments, because I know I was one of those people as well. I want to point out some key differences with traditional prostitution and with OnlyFans, because I think a lot of people believe that OnlyFans is a lot safer than actual prostitution, and I will let you guys be the judge of that yourself. Again, I'm trying to come across having an opinion, but also being a little bit more neutral, because I don't want You know, I have a lot of friends in this industry who are still some of my best friends and some of the most amazing people I've ever met. I've been in this industry and I've profited off of this industry, and I've been able to start a life because of this industry. I might not necessarily agree with a lot of things now, and a lot of truths have come to light through this journey, but I do want to be just completely honest with you guys. The key differences between traditional prostitution and online adult work. Traditional prostitution is obviously in person. Anything online is solely online. You have a computer screen that's blocking you, that's physically blocking you from the other person. Now, I can understand why people would believe that is actually the safer option, but I know so many girls who have stalkers, millions of people now watching you, not just like one person watching you. I know people who've had things sent to their house, who've had the houses broken into. So I can't necessarily say that it is safer. Also, digital permanence. Now, my parents always told me, be careful what you say, be careful what you post, because it could be used against you. The first day I hired a DCMA, they actually found $90,000 worth of content in the first day. Trust me, it never goes away. That kind of goes into my next point, that traditional prostitution is such an underground business, and normally nobody knows about it. Even for the men, no one knows who you are. Now people have, you know, you have a digital footprint. It could be in your search history. It could be tracked through IP. You got names, billing information that goes through a system. So there's a lot tracking you with that. Traditional prostitution was a last resort for a lot of people. It was mainly women who suffered from either sexual trauma or abuse when they were a child. A big percentage of the prostitutes were homeless. So it wasn't really a choice. It was something that people felt as though they had to do in order to make ends meet. And now it seems that you have girls who come from good families, who are college educated, who are making decisions to go onto the OnlyFans platform that would probably never be a prostitute and would never be in the adult industry at all. Not on a street corner, you wouldn't find these girls anywhere, but they're comfortable going on OnlyFans. So I think that should raise some questions as to why are people making the decision to do this instead? And I mean, I could answer that for you and probably for a lot of people, but I want people to really reflect back. A lot of them are normal girls. Some of them are young, some of them are older, some of them had businesses before, ended up dropping that and going to this because they saw the potential and the money in it. But I would argue that money only takes you so far. With anything, you can only do something for money for so long, and sometimes the consequences of gaining that money outweigh the financial freedom that you have right now. Now, there's also a lot of additional risks when it comes to doing online work. One of that, I would say, is unstable income. All of these people that are coming online that are saying they make like $40 million a year, $60 million a year, you know, $9 million a month, these are either really big influencers or they're already famous. And most people do not actually make that. I would say I was always in the like middle class of the OnlyFans industry. I was definitely making way more than, you know, the normal person would, but I wasn't making $40 million a year. But you see those numbers and you're like, oh my goodness gracious, must be the next best thing. But I think the issue with this industry now becoming so saturated is there's always going to be somebody younger, there's always going to be somebody hotter, there's always going to be somebody who's doing more explicit content, more extreme content. And unfortunately, in an industry like this, we used to love very tasteful artwork of women and this artistic flair of lingerie, and that's something I've really held on to and something I've really loved, and it seemed to have escalated into this just absolute debauchery, people competing over how many men they can sleep with on camera. Like, it's just absolute insanity. But that is the issue with the adult industry, is people are always going to want more. They're always going to want to see a new trick. They're always going to want to see how much more you can take, and that's where it does become something that's so extreme and potentially dangerous. And I do think that the reason why income is so unstable for a lot of creators now, or a lot of creators are falling off, is because it's so oversaturated. I'm 23, so if there's a girl that's coming on and she's 18 and she's, you know, with 5 different dudes, someone's probably gonna wanna see her over me. And that's okay with me. I'm not offended by that, but that's the truth. And so that money's now going towards her. And that's where you see all these people having significant cuts in their money. Second thing I would say is the exploitation of agencies. Now, I'm not going to get into the full nitty-gritties of that because I can write a whole book just on that. I actually kind of am. Next, I want to talk about something, and that is the exploitation of minors. We've seen it with Pornhub. I'm going to link down below an interview that I absolutely love. It's with this girl named Layla, and she's really made it her mission to debunk a lot of the lies that the CEO of Pornhub has liked to make when it comes to the exploitation of minors and them profiting off of it. So this is a much bigger issue, and I have seen lawsuits come out with OnlyFans creators of management exploiting them before they were of age. I know other platforms that were brought to my attention from other people where they're having a hard time deciphering between a girl who was 17 yesterday and is 18 today and when the picture was actually taken. And that kind of goes into my argument of I would love to be a part of a mission that raises the age of adult work to 21 or higher. I don't see why an 18-year-old needs to be making adult content at all. I don't think you're in a position with your life, with your brain, with anything to be involved in this type of industry. I think if you want to be involved, that is completely up to you, and you should be older to make that decision, because I even look back and I joined OnlyFans when I was 19 and I'm 23 now, and I think even just those few years of a difference, I would probably have not made the same decision. I'm not saying I regret my decision, but I probably wouldn't have made the same decision with the knowledge that I know now, and just overall the life experience and the confidence that I have now in myself and my abilities. And when you're 18, you don't have that. You know, you're either still in high school or you just graduated and you're going to college, or you're just trying to figure yourself out. And yeah, we could definitely get into that, but I think what's really turned my head away from this entire industry is the constant exploitation of minors and the amount of trafficking that goes through these platforms. And I don't have concrete evidence that OnlyFans is a part of this, so I'm not trying to make any allegations. I'm just saying the adult content space overall is very closely tied with trafficking. Last but not least, the other risks of OnlyFans that you don't get with normal prostitution is the parasocial relationships. I've seen what happens when certain men develop these obsessive and, you know, these parasocial relationships with creators online, and it can get very scary very fast. And I think with prostitutes, you don't really get that. It's more like, here's your money, bada bang, bada boom, we're done. I won't see you again. You probably will never see me again, and we're just gonna forget this ever happened. But OnlyFans, the ability to chat with people and build relationships with them and also be exchanging sexual, you know, photos and interactions, it forms a much deeper connection, even deeper than I would say online, just because there is that intimacy barrier that is then broken. Okay, now this is my personal favorite part, because this is actually something that I have analyzed on my own, and a lot of people want to argue with me over this, but that's okay because I'm here to debate. So supply and demand, everything runs on a supply and demand chain. Could my analysis change in the future? Yes, but this is right now what I have seen, not only with myself, but with other people, how the supply and demand chain works. Starting with number 1, the demand creates the market. What does this mean? A predominantly male audience is seeking exclusive content from a creator online. This fuels people's decision to actually step into the adult content world so they can capitalize on an already existing customer. Number 2, the supply grows to meet the demand. As word spreads about the profitability of OnlyFans, more people decide to join the platform. See people talking about their lifestyle, their freedom, what OnlyFans has allowed them to do, and they're more intrigued to step on. But with the high competition and the more explicitness of adult work, you start to see that just merely posting a bikini photo no longer retains your audience. And unless you are a previous social media influencer or celebrity, it is going to be extremely hard for you to retain that audience without coming more explicit over time. And this has happened with almost every single person that I know. I'm sure there's people that go online and they know exactly what the hell they're gonna do, but I have seen a lot of young girls, you know, start when OnlyFans was having its peak, not really posting anything too crazy, too sexual, and having to become more explicit over time and increase their performance over time in order to keep their audience and in order to keep their income. So now you have a bunch of girls who would have never done who are now making. Number 3, the demand adjusts to the supply. As more creators join the platform, subscribers become more selective with who they want to give their money to. They also start expecting more for their money, which causes prices to go down, and that's why you see things being sold at such a low price. One, the power of small numbers. But number 2, because you have to make your prices competitive. So, you know, if this other blonde girl, she has her subscription price at $20 a month. Well, if I make mine $18 a month, there's a potential for me to get more subscribers because I'm offering the same content as her at a cheaper price. I think people think OnlyFans runs as like a completely different industry, but truthfully, if you understand business, you would probably understand the ins and outs of OnlyFans. Not only do creators feel pressure to lower the prices of their content in order to sustain their income, but they also feel pressure to do more and more. And now you have creators who are coming out with different challenges, you know, sleeping with as many men as possible, doing these like crazy collabs with other people, and just being a cute hot girl on the platform is no longer going to cut it. This causes the divide. So only the top creators are making, you know, the $60 million a year, and then you have people who are making absolutely nothing, and then you have the people who are in the middle who are up and down and up and down and up and down depending on what is going on in the industry. What would seem like a very strategic and profitable move, I feel as though has kind of slapped a lot of people in the face. And I know a lot of people have become so financially comforted by the money that they make on OnlyFans. And when you see numbers, one month it goes all the way up, the next month it goes all the way down, that's really scary. And I think for any business owner, that's really scary. But I've definitely noticed a significant difference between each month in this industry, unless you have a really tight-knit audience, which I know some people have and I know some people struggle to make. The trade-offs with having that retained audience are, you know, the most explicit content, the collabs, the engaging social media profile, and putting yourself out there to the absolute max. So if you're trying to now keep this like a secret little thing, like you could have gotten away with that in the past, but not so much anymore. I know that because I did it. If it starts getting darker, it's because the sun is literally going down. So people want to know who are the men that are buying OnlyFans and who are the men that are showing up to these, you know, crazy events, and who are the men that are participating in this industry and who are just as guilty as the women. So in today's lesson, what makes a man join the OnlyFans platform as a subscriber? Number 1, personal connections and parasocial relationships. So a lot of these guys, they already love the creators online, or they already follow the girl online, and when she drops an OnlyFans, or if she already has an OnlyFans, they automatically go there. So that's pretty much a given. Number 2, some guys just want to see something exclusive. They want something custom. If a girl is promoting certain types of cosplays on her Instagram, they might go to her OnlyFans to request something in their, you know, kinks and niches that they like. So that's another reason. Number 3 is escaping loneliness. So whether this guy is married and is unhappy in his marriage, or whether he's just unhappy in his life, or whether he's a really, you know, high up business guy, doesn't have time for a normal relationship, and so he'll outsource to an OnlyFans girl, although I feel like that's not as common. You know, a lot of these guys are just trying to get a quick fix, and men are always gonna go and seek out some type of sexual interaction, and when it's so easily accessible, I find they all fall into the trap. I do think after doing more research into what does to people's brains and how detrimental it is to men, no wonder why women are like, F you, we're just gonna start an OnlyFans, because all of the men are brain rot because of the they're watching. Number 5 is the dopamine rush. So the dopamine rush of being able to talk to a random girl online, the dopamine rush of being able to pay for something sexual. Some guys are into that. It's kind of like gambling, where you just want to pay for something specific even though you don't really care where the money's going. Or just the dopamine rush you get from watching somebody else, or, you know, having some type of sexual interaction, even if it is online, with someone. That being said, I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons why men go onto OnlyFans, and I'm only scratching the surface, and I'm sure everybody has an individual reason why they went on OnlyFans. I did want to talk about this topic because I don't find a lot of people talk about it, and I do think it's extremely important to talk about. And I want to make this very clear before I say it. I am not accusing all of the men who go onto OnlyFans of having these mental disorders, but I am a psychology student at the University of Florida. I'm continuing my degree online, and when I was reading about the different types of sexual disorders, I realized that a lot of them align with certain requests and behaviors I've seen displayed on the platform. And what I have concluded is that a lot of paraphilic disorders align with adult content. And this is because the adult world aligns with a lot of the extreme fetishes that people with paraphilic disorders gravitate towards. Okay, I had to migrate because the sun is going down and I'm getting pissed off. So this includes fetishistic disorders, pedophilia, exhibitionistic disorders, addictions, just a lot of things. I'm gonna link a bunch of resources down below if you want to do your own DSM research or research on different disorders. I think it's actually very important. I didn't even realize that a lot of these things were disorders. I just thought they were kind of kinks, and that's something I do want to make clear, is just because someone is into something does not necessarily mean they are experiencing this disorder. And that's something that the DSM makes very clear, is that unless it's causing harm to their own life, which I would argue all of it is, but whatever, and it wouldn't technically be considered an actual disorder. So that's just the clarification. I'm not trying to diagnose people. I'm just saying that a lot of the content requests for objects and certain activities and certain role plays I found heavily tie into these different disorders. And I think that the adult content world is breeding grounds for predators and for mental illness from both parties, honestly. Like I said before, I want my main stance on this to be the protection of children, because I fear that the adult content world is treading a very thin line when it comes to the exploitation of children and also normalizing pedophilic behaviors, and that's what I don't like, and that's what makes me really uncomfortable. I think, for example, you have a girl like Bonnie Blue who's promoting Freshly 18, Barely Legal, and although I know she's doing it for marketing, and I'm sure some of it is true, but I'm sure a lot of it is just rage bait and marketing, it is starting to normalize these men being attracted to underage boys and girls. There really is no difference between a girl or a boy who is 17 at 11:59 p.m. and 18 at 12 a.m. And I think that's where the lines get blurred a lot between what content is a 17-year-old and what content is an 18-year-old, because truthfully, unless you had the timestamps, you cannot tell. And making it a normal thing after boys and girls who are significantly younger than you, I think is just treading a really dangerous line. And I also believe that for the men who come online and they promote men going with women who are significantly younger than them to just date them. I personally have never found one of those relationships to be sustainable. I've seen a lot of women who end up in that, either abused, taken advantage of, cheated on. And I've seen men who are completely used for their money and who end up lonely and who struggle a lot in relationships. So I think that's also a very dangerous narrative just in general to be pushing. I really do believe people are meant to find each other that are equally yoked, and not to bring Christianity into this. If you're going for someone who's significantly younger than you, I would just raise my red flag. I would just raise my red flag. That's where when people really try to just sit back and pretend like this doesn't affect them, and it's like, it is going to affect you. Whether it affects you today or whether it affects you when you have children, it will affect you at some point. Because I know I wouldn't want men to be so familiar with liking minors and liking people who are significantly younger than them. And the truth is, you don't really know. I see, you know, girls who are 15 who do their makeup and they look my age. And so I know men don't know. If I don't know, they don't know. That's where it's like, I wouldn't want my daughter walking out on the street and, you know, this guy thinks she's so much older. And I even had a lot of situations like that happen to me when I was younger. And I think it just, when it becomes normalized is when it becomes a problem, because people don't realize that it actually is disgusting. I've seen, you know, a lot of men try and get minors, Piper Raquel, to join the OnlyFans platform, or, you know, are expecting her to join the OnlyFans platform. And that's where it even becomes even more predatory, is like, now you have people posting online, and regardless of her past, I'm saying just in general, you have these minors who are posting online, and you have men in their comment section wondering when they're dropping an OnlyFans link. This is not normal, and we need to stop normalizing it, and we need to put restrictions on the type of content that's being made. So this also goes back to my argument of making the age of sex work up to 21 at least. I would say 21 to 25, but I would be happy with 21, because I don't think 18 you should be allowed in this industry. I just don't. Nobody can convince me otherwise. I started younger than 21, and I would not wish that on someone who was 19 just trying to figure themselves out. Also, I took my glasses off because you could see all of the lights and I looked crazy, but now I'm like blind, so I'm like, am I even in focus? So if I'm not in focus, I'm sorry, I literally cannot see. Now let's talk about the creators. Being a creator is nothing short of the glitz and glam. Honestly, that's probably 1% of it. The other 99% is everything you have to do in order to sustain the lifestyle that you bought yourself into. I want to say that a lot of women who are promiscuous, it's not necessarily about loving sex, but it's fear. It's fear translating itself outward. Sometimes that's the fear of being unloved, or the fear of being unseen, or the fear of not being desirable, or the fear of financial failure. Don't find women who are truly in love with themselves who are able to be promiscuous. And I know I'm gonna get pushback for saying that, but I think if you truly loved and valued yourself, you wouldn't want to share the most intimate parts of yourself with the world. And I'm sure there's a few exceptions to the rule, but I mean, as I said it before, there's like, what, 4 million creators on the platform. I guarantee you most of them are not doing this because they love it, and they're doing it for a paycheck. And I think it traps people who are feeling vulnerable, and they're feeling scared, and they don't know how they're gonna make ends meet. They're trying to just buy themselves into a life that they think is going to be fulfilling, and they're not worrying about what happens after. And I've seen it in so many interviews with OnlyFans girls when people are asking them, well, what are you gonna do later? And they're like, oh, it's fine. Like, I'm making so much money now. I'm not thinking about that. There's only going deeper into the industry. It's not like a normal job or a normal business where you can continue to scale and to scale and to scale. You can scale, but that also includes going to extreme lengths and making more explicit content, and, you know, doing more things, collabing with more people, putting yourself potentially even in danger, which, you know, we see with Lily Phillips, we see with Bonnie Blue. So that is working your way up the totem pole of this industry. I highly recommend people watch the documentary After. It's a great documentary. It shows you the lives of a lot of these major, you know, porn stars when it was, I want to say like the 90s, 80s, 90s, maybe even earlier. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say your life's going to be absolutely ruined. I'm not saying my life's going to be absolutely ruined. I have a ton of plans for my life. I think it is very naive to think that these decisions are not going to affect certain earning potentials you have in the future. And one thing that is inevitable is we are all going to get old. And when these guys are going for people who are freshly 18, I'm sorry, girl, but the minute you turn a certain age or the minute those wrinkles start to come, people are not going to be buying your content. And it's the same thing in the modeling industry. You have a shelf life, and you have a shelf life in this industry, and I think that's what people don't really realize. And they think they're somehow exempt because of how much money that they're making, that it doesn't matter. But like I said before, money only goes so far, and you can only stop aging so much. But I do want to speak from a perspective that I think a lot of women can understand, because I know girls are taught to be wary of men because they only want one thing, and unfortunately society values women based on their beauty. And I know we've really tried to like get the reins back and have that not be the case, but I think there's always going to be a part of society that will value women based on how beautiful and how attractive they are, and base them on the worth of their bodies. I don't personally think it's right, okay? I would much rather be valued for my brain and for the writing that I want to put out in the world than for being beautiful. But that's something that I even write about in my book. A struggle of mine was breaking out of this mindset that in order to be somebody amazing, I had to be beautiful. And that's just not the case. And that's unfortunately the narrative that society buys into. It's hard to be in this type of industry, and you're actually getting income based on your body. I think it's difficult, and I think every girl has gone through the comparison of like, well, why is she making more money than me? And because she has bigger boobs? Is it because she doesn't have boobs? Is it because, you know, she has a BBL? Is it because she's pin thin? Like, what is the reasoning behind it? So I think there's so much pressure put on us to all look a certain way, and I think just put on women in general to look a certain way. But once you tie money to that, and I know a lot of models feel the same way, once you put a price tag on your body and on your looks, it becomes a dangerous game. It almost becomes a chase for the validation and for the love and for more money, because the amount of money you make now gets tied to your self-worth. I think the twisted part about all of this is that society wants to say that they hate promiscuity from women so much, at least in the West. It is so highly rewarded. The girls who are the most promiscuous end up with the houses, they end up with the cars, they end up with the bags, they end up with the high value men, which I would argue are not high value men, but they're living that lifestyle. And so I understand why so many girls fall into the OnlyFans trap, is because it is so heavily rewarded. And that's where it's like, we can sit here and blame the girls so much, but it's like, why are OnlyFans girls the ones buying Lambos? Why are OnlyFans girls able to get themselves out of debt and buy houses, buy their parents' houses? They wouldn't be getting the money from nowhere if everyone hated them so much and wanted to completely ostracize them from society. Why are they the ballers? So these are just questions that I want people to really think about when, you know, you're targeting these girls and saying how horrible they are, and not understanding that society is the one that is fueling their career. It's so crazy. You see it with celebrities as well. It's like, we all want to say that we absolutely hate celebrities and they're so out of touch, and sure, a lot of them are, but it's also like, who made them famous? Like, who glorified them? Who put them on the screen? Who gives them airtime? Us. We are the ones that give them all of the attention, and then we want to get pissed off when they're getting attention. In a digital age, attention a lot of times does equal money. Views equals money. Clicks equals money. So the more attention you're giving everybody, the more money they're making, the more powerful they're becoming, the more eyes are on them. I think that OnlyFans really is a game that everyone is playing, and in order to wake up, you have to realize that we've all been losing the entire time. Something that I found that I feel a lot of creators have suffered from on this platform is identity dissonance. So identity dissonance occurs when there is a conflict between you and the persona that you feel compelled to portray. On platforms like OnlyFans, you have a lot of these creators who are performing and they're acting and they're pretending to be, you know, like the girl next door who's super fun and sexual and like loves whatever. And then you have the girl who's like, I don't know, super kinky and super cool and super mysterious. And these are all different characters. And I think when you are going online and portraying a character for so long, you really start to feel conflicted, because you can only keep up the act so long, you know? It's like when you go out into society wearing a mask, you can only keep that mask up for so long until it slips. And I think a lot of people can relate to the feeling of when you're constantly portraying somebody that you're not, you start to feel more anxious, you start to feel depressed, really decreases your quality of life. And that's why you have creators like Nala Ray who've come out and have spoken about their experience, and they're like, I had everything and I was miserable. And it's because who you're being is not who you truly are. That's really what I want my book to be about, is being able to reconcile with yourself. And I think a lot of people in society struggle with this overall. We work jobs that we hate, and we're in relationships we hate, and we're in a city that we hate, and we don't know what to do, and we're stuck, and we financially can't move, and we're still tied to a past version of ourselves, and it's really difficult. And that's why I really don't like when people are so shameful of OnlyFans creators. It's not easy breezy, let me just quit today and I'll be fine. When you decide to leave the job is not the day that you actually leave. And I think that's what people just forget. They're like, oh, well, what you're doing is so wrong, so just quit right now. And there's just so many things that go into it. You're constantly portraying a character, and then you're getting paid for your body. I think everyone kind of goes through this cycle of wondering what they're really valuable for. And I've even seen it, a lot of girls saying, well, men are gonna do this to me anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Or I know Lily Phillips would say like, oh, well, I'm not really that smart. When you're in this industry, it's hard not to start believing that you are only your looks and you are only your body. And I think that is one of the most dangerous places to be as a woman, is believing that you are only this, because women are so much more than that. And this industry overall, not even just OnlyFans, just the adult industry overall, I think takes every good part of women and relationships and sex and completely degrades it into absolutely nothing. It's unfortunate how profitable it actually is. But I think that's where we really need to reflect back as a society of what we are prioritizing and what we're pushing out there and what we're teaching our children to grow up around and normalize and learn about themselves and about the world. And my angle is not to shame anyone for making this decision. It's not to shame anyone for consuming adult content. It's not to shame anyone for participating in creating adult content. But just asking yourself like where you're at and what you believe that you're worth, and truly understanding the industry that you're participating in any capacity. For the girls who are considering it or are already in it, I just have one question for you. Is this truly what you want, or is this what you were taught to want? And are you doing this because it feels right for you, or are you doing this for survival, validation, love, feeling seen in some way? Because it's easy to confuse what we've been conditioned to believe with what we actually desire. And the lie is that we are just our looks. And being a willing participant of the game doesn't make the game go away. Real self-worth is knowing that you are so much more than just a body. You're so much more than subscribers, tips, money, a lifestyle. And it's really sad to see people all over in all different industries falling into this pit hole of believing that money is going to fill the hole inside of them. The truth is the only things that can do that are you and God and your purpose. And no amount of money and no lifestyle is ever going to fulfill you. And that's unfortunately why you see so many people who are so successful and so unhappy, because they've reached this level and they realize that sometimes it's not all it's cracked up to be. Really ask yourself, am I doing this because I believe I'm worth so much, or because I believe I don't? So like I said, I made this video to draw awareness. I made this video as a part of my series to uncovering the truth of who you are and really embracing this next chapter of your life, and also appreciating all of the chapters in your life. I don't want people to be shamed, and I don't want people to, a lot of people talk about how disgraceful and how horrible creators are and these men are, and unfortunately a lot of these men, specifically the ones that are suffering from these mental disorders, I think they need to get like professional help. And that's not like a snarky comment. Like truthfully, you need help, because a lot of these things unfortunately don't get uncovered until something really traumatic happens, and it is very dangerous. But I wanted to make this for the girls that are thinking that this might be a good idea, and for the young girls who, you know, are looking up to these influencers and seeing them live these lifestyles and wondering if OnlyFans is the way. It is definitely not the way, and in my opinion, the consequences completely outweigh any type of financial gain you will get from this. I know people believe that it really doesn't matter, and I would argue that it doesn't matter as much as people say that it matters, especially now because it is so normalized. But I think even exposing yourself to some of the worst people truly on this planet, people you don't even know and you wouldn't even expect, I don't think it's worth it. I think it's predatory from every single angle you can look at it. I think you're unwillingly participating in an industry that borderlines a lot of illegal activity, and it's very strange that there's no regulations on this and that it hasn't really come up in government at all, considering prostitution, at least here in the United States, is illegal. Nobody is stuck, nobody is damaged goods, and unless you stop breathing oxygen, you always have the ability to make a different decision. People have the right to change. People have the right to change their mind. They have the right to change their life. They have the right to change their decisions. And I think that should be celebrated in society instead of shamed and told that you're not worth anything and nobody wants you and no one's gonna marry you and all of these things that people say to creators. I don't think it's beneficial at all. I will never agree with it. And I will always support helping people grow out of a place of love and not out of a place of hate, no matter what topic we are talking about. I hope that this was able to kind of give you some insight. I feel like I could talk about this topic for so long, and there's definitely going to be more videos about this. I also will give you guys updates on writing my book. I kind of want to take you guys along on the journey because this is the first book I'm writing. I mean, I've actually written a different book, but then a lot of things happened and I figured that this was the book that I wanted to write. I feel like documenting that would be kind of a cool process for anyone who's an aspiring writer, or, you know, people who are just really trying to get in touch with themselves and their creativity and their inner artist, however that may be. I hope I was able to give you some important information and try and be nice. This is really just opening a conversation. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. Some of these are my opinions, some of these are facts, and you're able to take this and decipher what you will from it and draw up your own conclusions. I think this is just important for us to talk about, and I feel like it's been kind of neglected. I think it's kind of started to come up in conversation more, but it's kind of just been like brewing under the surface and no one really knows what to do. I'm happy to be an active participant in this conversation, and I hope you guys have a good night. Sorry this is really long, but yeah, see you in my next video. Bye. Ew, I hate outros.